Good evening, I'm Jim Whaley. In the entertainment industry, superlatives are often tossed around like confetti, but I think I can safely say, without fear of contradiction, that my guest tonight on Cinema Showcase is the First Lady of the American Musical Theater, Miss Mary Martin. A great success on stage, in films, and on television. Her extraordinary career continues today, and we'll be talking about that career, so I hope you'll join me as I talk with Mary Martin tonight on Cinema Showcase. Thank you very much for joining Cinema Showcase tonight. And right now, join me in welcoming back to the program, Mary Martin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I mentioned in the intro that your career, extraordinary as it's been in the past, certainly continues very heavily today. What keeps you busy most today?
Moving, airplanes. I go from one city to another. I generally know where I am. I cannot remember where I have been or where I'm going, but if I can just remember what city I'm in, I don't even need a wire to fly anymore, just on my own speed. Just
now that will disillusion a lot of people.
No, but what happens is that I've been very busy in the last 5 years doing things for Fieldcrest, which is a design place that has towels and sheets and pillowcases. And I started about 4.5 years ago. I shall be going into my 5th year by designing, and that was because of my needlepoint book. And designed for 2 years, and then suddenly they said, would I stay on and be sort of a roving ambassadress for Fieldcrest? And I have roved from here to Ireland, and I'm in town, actually, today, for the Ireland I Love. I'll be on tomorrow from 12 to 1 and 3 to 4 at Rich's. There's another name for Rich's.
Lennox Square?
Lennox Square.
Yeah.
Lennox Square, that's right. And I will be talking about this new collection called The Ireland I Love because I watched it being designed in Ireland. So I actually haven't been home since last April. My home is Palm Springs.
Yeah.
I went to New York, to Ireland, and then back to Palm Springs, and unpacked, repacked, and started doing Over Easy.
That was going to mention. PBS keeps you rather busy, doesn't it?
Yes, that started June the 1st. And I made 65 tapes with Jim Hartz. We took over for Hugh Downs and Frank Blair. And it was a new experience because I had never been on your side. I think it's harder on your side than it is on my side.
It can be. It can be.
Yeah, it's a whole technique.
What did you find the most difficult about being on that side of it?
Well, first, all the technicalities. When they came up and went like that, I thought they were meant to chop our heads off or something. That means stop, I think, or you're getting close to it. All the technical things that, see, I was in television for 10 years. I was under contract to NBC, but I did specials. And most of them would be straight from the theater, and the camera found me. Now I have to find the camera.
Yeah.
And that's not, well, I mean, I was very pleased because Jim Hart said I learned it quicker than anyone he ever had worked with. But I think he was just being very
It is really a technique, though, isn't it?
Of course,
because,
and then countdown and all that sort of thing. I can't count, period, so.
I remember you telling me when you were here before for your book, which I think is still, and I must say this sincerely, one of the best autobiographies
Oh, well,
I've
now
ever
that's
read.
very kind of you, Jim.
I remember you telling me, though, that in writing the book, much of it came easy, much of it was difficult, but that you had great difficulty with, I think you said, particular dates.
Oh, it's
of things.
terrible. Facts, any facts.
Facts, yeah.
And my only facts is I go by shows, and I don't know what year they were in, and always everyone's asking me. I'm probably the only one who ever played in a show like The Sound of Music for 2.5 years who didn't know where it was playing. And this occurred when I was being driven always from my apartment to the theater, to the stage door, and something happened to the car, and it was a matinee day, and I had to get there. So I said, let me out, Ernest, and I will get a cab. I will go. And I jumped out, got in a cab and got in it, and I said, take me to The Sound of Music. And he said, where's that? I said, what do you mean? He said, where is it, ma'am? I said, you don't know where the Sound of Music is playing? And he said, well, I certainly don't. I said, please let me out of this cab right away. Out I got, because I didn't know where it was playing either. Now, that's true, and it's hard to believe, but this is true. So I found a taxi, and I said, do you know where before I got in, do you know where the Sound of Music is playing? He said, yes, ma'am. We get there, and I said, I don't want to go to the front. Take me to the stage door. Isn't that terrible?
That was a prerequisite then for cab drivers after that, to be sure they knew where your shows were
Well,
playing.
I didn't get it. I didn't leave my car ever again.
That's marvelous. You also talk about in your book how things always for you have seemed to go in circles.
Yes, they do.
And, you know, I found that to be true as well.
Here's our
in
circle.
fact, we could, exactly.
Our circle
I was
again.
about to mention that.
Our lives touch.
Has that continued for you?
Yes, constantly. It's unbelievable. Really, I mean, I'm having a wonderful experience now of meeting people. That's one of the reasons I adore doing this for Fieldcrest, and also to have a live audience when I did the tapes for Over Easy. I'm meeting people whose lives are involved with mine, and I don't know them. Mm-hmm. And now I can come and we meet, and I hear stories, wonderful stories, and hold hands, and this is another gift given to me, because I've had this rare joy of hearing an audience and feeling that fabulous chemistry, but now I'm feeling close up a handshake.
Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly.
It's wonderful.
You know, I wonder, though, if your career had strictly been in films, if you would have found Over Easy as fulfilling as apparently you have, because having been on the stage as much as you have, you've had that rapport with the audience, and therefore that brings you closer to them.
Well, the thing is, I can't answer that question because I wouldn't have stayed in films.
Yeah.
They just bore me to death.
Really?
Oh, they're so dull. You sit and wait, and you never know who you're getting in the end of the picture. Once I went to see the last picture I made, actually, at Paramount, to see if I got Francho Tone or Dick Powell. I know who I got.
I saw, not very long ago, what I think is still a marvelous film, The Birth of the Blues.
Oh, I saw it the other night.
How does that hold up for you?
Well, I was glad to see it because I hadn't really ever seen it. I made it and then had Heller. And Heller was almost practically born into that picture because she was on the way. And I saw it, and I wanted to see it before her birthday is coming up.
Ah.
And I did see it.
Looking back on that, you were a part of, briefly, that period in Hollywood known as the Golden Age, when the studios were all powerful and so forth. Looking back on that now, how do you think of that whole experience? What was Paramount like for you at the time?
Well, Paramount brought me my Richard. See, I met Richard at Paramount, and I can forgive them anything, even the pictures that I didn't want to do, but I found my Richard, and that would be about, well, we would have been married 41 years this year, but we were married 34, and before he had to leave this world, and it was a great gift from Paramount. That's the only good thing I can say about being in movies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's certainly
That was the best.
the most important thing. Yeah.
But the thing is, I think I have done a movie for television about a year and a half ago, Valentine, with Jack Albertson, and I love that because that was in 28 days, and it was exciting.
Yeah.
You know, it was immediate. I would enjoy doing films for television.
You know, I think Albertson is a fine actor.
Oh, he's wonderful. He's just wonderful.
Yeah,
He's
and
marvelous to work with.
You know, TV movies, interestingly, are, well, they have been the rage really for the past several years, and I think will become even more so, particularly these, I guess for want of a better term, these mini extravaganzas, these things that seem to go on for not only days, but weeks.
Yes,
you
yes.
know.
Well, I think it'd be very exciting to do a movie like The Thorn Birds, you know,
yeah.
and have that go on. That's a very exciting idea.
Sure. Let's talk, if we might, for a minute or two about the state of the art. This already sounds pretentious, doesn't it? Of the American musical theater. And when I say that, I'm thinking back on musicals like South Pacific, like Annie Get Your Gun, like The Sound of Music, like Carousel, etc., where we had song after song after song that were just incredibly beautiful. We don't have that today. We have wonderful shows.
I don't think we had the composers that had been on a long time before they got to that too. You know, Oscar Hammerstein had written, when I was a little girl, I remember Rosemary.
Right.
And so they have left us now, unfortunately, for all of us who love them. But the new young people coming up, I don't think have been on that long. I think eventually they will find their music. I think Evita has some wonderful songs in it. Certainly, Don't Cry for Me. And I think Stephen Sondheim, who was under Oscar's home and lived with him all his life, he was like a second son, has great talent. But again, it's not as old a talent coming forward as when I was in the theater. I think that when Hair started, that was the beginning of a new form. And I didn't particularly like that form, but I think that Evita came out of that in a strange way. And I think that everything goes in cycles, again, in circles.
In circles.
And it will go back to more romantic music, and will go back to lyrics that mean something, that tell a story, and you can hear them.
That was really my next question. Do you think we will have writers like Oscar Hammerstein who are interested in expressing those emotions?
I do.
Because many people have commented that Oscar Hammerstein's lyrics are poetry, and they are. You can read his lyrics, and they're poetry.
It is poetry. And again, he wrote differently with Richard Rodgers than he did with, say, Jerome Kern. And Rodgers wrote different music because of him, except he wrote other kinds of music with Larry Hagman. I think that, I always have hope that everything goes on further and develops. For instance, I would like to do, I don't want to do a musical again because I don't want to get in a musical for that long, but I would like to do maybe a review someday that would not have to cost $3 million. And I think reviews could come back. That's a long time ago, and I never was in one.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, Irving Berlin, bless his heart, is still with us, and he has a trunk full. And we talked about it for years, of Irving Berlin music box review. And that could happen someday. He has so many songs in this
I read somewhere of how many songs Irving Berlin had published, and it was in the thousands.
Oh dear, just unbelievable. Can you believe that somebody like Irving Berlin, with the songs that he has written, for him suddenly to write comedy lyrics, no one ever expected that, and doing what comes naturally, and I'm an Indian too, and to suddenly do Moonshine Lullaby, which happens to be one of my favorite songs.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and it's inexplicable to me that song was omitted from not only the film version.
I didn't ever see it. It was?
Yeah, and also some of the revivals. And I think it's one of the most beautiful songs in the score.
It's the only one I like that I did ever in an album. Ever! I mean, I wasn't exhausted when we made it, because when we did Annie Get Your Gun, this is the second time that I did Annie Get Your Gun, and this was with John Raitt. So I had been in Brazil, and I came back to do it in Los Angeles, and we made the record before we actually started rehearsal. So I was rested, and I loved Moonshine Lullaby. Recently, I found it, and I hadn't heard it in years, and I played it, and it's the only, honestly, good singing, I think, what I mean, smooth.
Yeah, well.
And I love doing it.
It's a beautiful song.
But there are a lot that I don't dare to hear.
Let me ask you a question about Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. It's often been said that Hammerstein was the gentler of the two, that Rodgers, brilliant, wonderful man though he was the tough businessman of the two. Did you find that to be the case?
I think that Richard was the businessman. I never found it tough to be with him. I mean, I never did have anything to do with business. Richard did all that. But Oscar was very gentle, but he had a tremendous temper. He could get very, very strong. And it was such a shock when he did, because it didn't happen often. But it was wonderful. And I had one experience when I did, again, when I did Annie Get Your Gun, 10 years later I also did South Pacific for the Civic Light Opera in California. And I was having a marvelous time just playing like crazy in Honey Bun. And I thought, oh, this is so wonderful. I know this is better than 10 years ago. Oh, I was having such a good time. And Oscar came back, and we were sitting there, and he didn't say anything about the performance. And I said, well, Oscar, how was it? He said, all right. I said, what do you mean, all right? I just never had such a good time. He said, that's it, but the audience, I didn't have as good a time. You're having too good a time. And I said, oh, I burst into tears because I adored him. And I said, you mean I was overdoing? He said, yes, for the first time in your life.
I remember Joshua Logan telling me one time that, I don't know whether it was South Pacific or any number of other shows he directed, that he would often come back a year later if the show ran that long and correct the improvements they had made.
Oh, he always did that. He didn't stay away a year. He came back every few weeks to take out the improvements.
That's amazing.
But he's a wonderful director. You see, I really and truly have had the greatest lyricists, greatest composers, greatest directors, choreographers, every possible. The only person I would love to have worked with and finally did many of the albums was Gershwin.
Yeah.
And I got there just right after he left.
Well, your first really big success was with a Cole Porter song, wasn't it?
Well,
Our
Cole Porter
Belongs
was the
to Danny.
beginning.
Yeah.
Kurt Weill was next. And then Noel Coward.
What a group.
Noel Coward
Yeah.
wrote a show for me in London. And, you know, it's fabulous. Blessed life.
Oh, indeed.
Blessed life.
If I might make one more comment on what we were discussing earlier, I hope that the people we have today, such as Sondheim, Jerry Herman, people like this, will take up where Rodgers left off, where Cole Porter left off, Hammerstein, etc. And I guess the word I'm looking for is warmth. I'd like to see a little more warmth in the American musical theater.
I think Jerry has that. And I think Sondheim has it. I think sometimes they're just a little too sophisticated, just a teeny, you know.
Yeah.
But that can all smooth out. It's like me doing Honey Bun and having too much fun.
You've talked about the, goodness, everybody knows about the wonderful successes you've had, and I'm sure you have been in a position to turn down a number of shows. Is there one that stands out that you turned down that you thought about later, gosh, I really wish I hadn't turned that one down?
No, I really didn't. I had a terrible experience about Kiss Me Kate because I was doing Annie Get Your Gun, where I was singing, you know, all those songs and not in my range. So when I was out in California playing it, and Cole Porter said, I want you to come to the house and let me play a new score for you. And it was Kiss Me Kate. I knew I couldn't sing it because my voice wouldn't go back up to that high voice. And I turned that down thinking he understood that, and only to find out after he died and read the book that it just devastated him. That he thought I didn't like the music.
Yeah.
And I thought he understood it. And that made me very sad. I would have done it if I could have sung it.
Right.
But no, all the others were reasons. I did not do My Fair Lady because I had just finished Peter Pan, and I was extraordinarily tired, and also I busted everything in my back on one of my flights, and no one knew it, and I just had to say no. But I really feel that Julie Andrews, because I had seen her in The Boyfriend, and I said, there is the girl here in New York City who can play this part. And I went to Brazil, and I don't think I've ever gotten it across to Alan, because he was very hurt. He thought but I couldn't. I could not do it.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Mame, and I really and truly deeply wanted to do I Do, I Do. Couldn't do them all.
Oh, simply no time.
And I Do was one of the great joyous experiences of my life. I loved it. It's all about marriage, and it's the last thing that I did. I did. I do is the last thing I did.
I did.
And it was about marriage, and it was at the end of that when we went to Brazil and had 4 years of living in Brazil, and then Richard died there. So I'm glad I do.
Yes.
I do.
You mentioned earlier that Noel Coward wrote a play for you in London, Pacific 1860, I believe, which has a lovely, lovely score.
Oh, it has a beautiful score.
And you write about, I think, in your book, is one of the most fascinating parts, your great friendship with Noel Coward. But yet, there was a certain time, I think, where you had a little tiff.
2.5 years. We didn't speak.
Which was
2.5
over
years.
something quite trivial.
Over a
wasn't it?
bow and a large hat. Just insane, stupid. But we were both very stubborn. We were both Sagittarians. I think I'm the December 1st and he's the 12th or 14th. Forgotten. But we are quite alike. And driving and when you believe in something, that's the way it has to be. And I had written that I could not wear large hats. He told me it was going to be period, or bows, because I was so thin and very skinny, and practically you can see my face is non-existent. It isn't anymore. And the first thing that they did is put me in, of course, all crinolines at Pacific 1860, so it was in 1860. A lot of people thought it was a telephone number, but it was 1860. And so my entrance was in a large hat and a rather large bow. So I said nothing about it till the time came, and I said, no, you know, I'm not wearing the hat or the bow. And he said, oh, yes, you are. Now, he's very loyal to all his friends, and his friend had designed this for me, but also he designed all his shows for years.
Gladys
Caulfield.
Yeah.
Pardon me. So anyway, there he was, the bull in the china shop, both bulls in 2 china shops. And I took the bow off, and I kept the hat on. I was compromising a little bit, not much. Anyway, this was a silly feud that went on for 2.5 years.
Good heavens.
And we finally came back together in South Pacific. He sent me white lilacs, a huge box as large as this thing I'm sitting on, and a card saying, I'm in the audience. I will be in the audience tonight. May I come back? And he came back, and he knelt at my feet, and he said, why have we been fighting? Well, the tears poured down his face, my face. But we had this wonderful, wonderful friendship. And actually, I was in New York recently, and Mike Wallace is doing a show on various people like Noel. He said, would you talk? And I said, well, I'd love to. And we talked for about 2 hours. I won't be on that long, but it was like renewing that wonderful, exciting time in my life, because he was an exciting man, brilliant, funny. Do you know his story about one lines?
No.
Well, this is the way the man is. When he was in Australia, he was up to here with the reporters, everybody at him, constantly when he talked this, talked that, and he had done it all. And he was on his way, leaving to catch the plane, and the limousine was taking off, and a woman started running after it. Finally, it stopped at a light, and she made it, and she said, the window was rolled up. She said, please, would you just say one word to me about Australia? And he rolled down the window, and he said, a kangaroo, and rolled it up.
Marvelous.
Oh, he's so funny.
Tell me about the first line, I think it was, you had to say in Pacific 1860.
Oh, golly. The line was, she wouldn't laugh, nor would she be angry. She would be touched and very grateful. Now, see, I'm the only person in the cast who is American. Everyone is English. And I am playing an opera singer who's traveled all over the world and speaks 7 languages. Well, I couldn't even speak English, so I had to learn it because by rote with his finger. She wouldn't laugh, nor would she be angry, she'd be touched and very grateful. She wouldn't laugh, nor would she be angry, she'd be touched and very grateful. I said, I can't understand a word I'm saying, Noel. He said, that's all right, dear. This is the way it has to be. She wouldn't laugh, nor would she be angry. She'd be touched and very grateful. That's the way I played it. Wasn't very successful.
But he had to have it that way?
Yes.
That's marvelous.
Oh, he taught me a lot, tremendous amount, fabulous amount.
We don't have just a bit of time, and I must mention, I guess the role that perhaps most people still think of you as, and that's Peter Pan. Do you think people still, is this the role they're most
Yes, it
connected
is.
with?
It truly is. It depends. When I'm writing for Fieldcrest or autographing things for Over Easy, it depends. Most of the ladies remember me as Nellie.
Mm-hmm.
Then you come along and it's Peter Pan. I can tell everybody's age by the time by the way they get there. But I do an awful lot of J.R.'s mother now. and that was, last year I was doing J.R.'s mother, now it's J.R.'s real mother, which I'm very proud to do.
Yes.
I'm very proud walking 40 paces behind him.
What an incredibly successful program.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Mm.
But thrilling.
Yeah.
And he's marvelous. He's a marvelous actor, but he's marvelous about it. I said to him recently, how long do you think this is going to last? And he said, 32 seconds in our lifetime.
Mary, this has been a delight for me, and I hope you've enjoyed it again.
I loved it, Jim.
Good to see you again.
Every 5 years,
We'll have to make it sooner.
make it spring cleaning time, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks so
Okay.
much. Okay. My thanks to all of you for watching. Until next time, good night.